I'm going to hit the record button. That way, if you'd like to watch this over, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, if you have some questions, please feel free to type those in the chat box. Valerie will be glad to answer those. I'm going to give you my contact information at the conclusion. So if you need to contact me, you are welcome to do that after the presentation. All right, so let's get started and let's take a look at this first slide and talk a little bit about what we will cover today with RPR and the basics class. Now, even though it's a basics class, I do a lot of technology coaching and training and helping agents. So I'm going to take you out into some deeper waters just for a little bit, but don't panic. I'm not going to let anybody I'm going to make sure everybody's okay, all right? But I want to show you just some of the really cool things that I'm doing with RPR and how I'm pushing the envelope, because there are some really cool things that you can do with RPR. So through this class, I'm really going to talk to you about what is RPR, how to use it with buyers and sellers. We'll talk about how to create some reports. I'll show you some what I think are some cool reports that I'm creating, and creating some digital magazines with some of the RPR reports. We'll look at how to get into your account, a few more things like that. So what is RPR? It's an exclusive realtor access. This is not available for the buying and selling public. The consumers have no access to RPR because it's owned by RPR. Now, the first bullet point says it's a parcel-centric property information of over 170 million parcels across the U.S. When I first read that, it took me back to my college days when I crammed 4 years of college into 5. In a live classroom, that always gets a few laughs, so I crammed 4 years of college into 5. Yes, I put college algebra off until my senior year, and actually I wrote an essay on why my teacher should give me a D minus, because I had to graduate. I did not want to go to summer school. I did make a C, by the way, so I guess my writing skills were better than my mathematical skills. But I remember a lot of times in college, especially algebra, when the teacher would say, "Do you understand that?" And I'd look around and everybody was like, "Yeah, I got that. That was easy." And I would kind of be confused and hated to raise my hand because I had no idea what she had just talked about. So what do we mean by this parcel-centric property information database? Well, it basically means if there is a property in your community that has a parcel number at the courthouse, more than likely, not always, but most of the time, that property will be in RPR. Here's a good example. I recently sold a house for some friends of mine. Now, I knew these folks since I was a very little boy. I grew up down the street from them. They owned that home since 1954. And as far as I know, and I've been selling real estate since the age of 18 in this community, they never ever put their house on the market. It had never been in the MLS. They've owned it since 1954. I was born in 1960. Their house never darkened the MLS corridors. Yet when he passed away, she went into a nursing home, and their children wanted me to list the property. I was able to go into RPR, find that property, and RPR even gave me a suggested list price. That's what we mean by a parcel-centric property database with over 170 million parcels. It means there are properties in RPR that maybe have never, ever been in your MLS. And what's really cool about this is that it's delivered through this cutting-edge application. I mean, there are pieces of data. We're living in this world of big data. And, as creepy as it might sound or be, people know there's data out there and it's available. Much of it is public data that's available for anyone. You just got to go out and find it. Well, RPR has developed this very cool cutting edge application that goes out and gets the data and brings it right into RPR. For example, you want to know how many full days of sunshine you might have in your community? It's in RPR. How many days of rain? It's in RPR. You want to know how many people vote Republican and how many people vote Democrat in your community or zip code? That information's in RPR. And I'm going to show you when you create some of these neighborhood reports how beneficial and useful that is for us as real estate professionals, as realtors. In fact, the sad reality is somebody somewhere has not been making their mortgage payments. And they've been trying to maybe work with the bank or the bank's trying to work with them and the and it's just come to a point where unfortunately the bank has hired their attorney to begin foreclosure proceedings on that property. And the attorney is going somewhere in all of our communities to the local courthouse today, filing paperwork to begin foreclosure proceedings on that property. Tomorrow, that information will be in RPR. I mean, there's data and information as we get into this that is spread out all over the internet or sometimes in a courthouse somewhere, and RPR has strategically arranged to go out, get the data for us, and bring it right into RPR. Flood maps, lots of information. So you need to know that it's a very cutting edge application. It's exclusively for realtors. It's included with your dues dollars, so there's no extra charge. And I'm not here to sell anything or try to upsell you at the conclusion of the webinar. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, what is RPR? It's a research tool. It's a pricing tool. I mean, it has helped me close more transactions over the last year that I could not have closed with my regular MLS. And that's not to say that I'm not using my MLS. We're not here to replace the MLS, but this is a tool that really, I think, puts our MLS on steroids. It's a farming and a prospecting tool. It's a listing presentation tool. It's all in one place. In fact, if I was writing or developing this PowerPoint for RPR, I would have one more bullet point because I always share this in every class. I'm driving to Columbia, Missouri about a year or so ago to deliver an RPR course. I'm listening to an MP3 in my car. I love to listen to motivational books and I love to listen to just books that will somehow add value to my life and put positive words into my mind and my body. So I'm listening to this motivational MP3 of an interview with a gentleman by the name of Joe Polish. You can go Googling Joe Polish. He's an internet marketer. He had a dry cleaning business. He ran all his charge cards up because he was trying to figure out how to grow his carpet cleaning business by using marketing and online marketing. He's done some very cool things, and he's very successful today. And so I'm listening to this interview. They're asking Joe some questions, and suddenly, somewhere between St. Louis and Columbia on I-70, I hear Joe Polish tell the interviewer, "You know, there's only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill." Now that caught my attention. I'm thinking, well, what is that? I'm thinking they're both pieces of paper. They both have ink, and Joe says it's the message, and it hit me like a brick wall because then I said that's why RPR works for me. And if you walk away with nothing else today from this webinar, although I know you're going to get some good ideas, here's what I want you to remember or ask yourself. What's the message you are delivering to the buying and selling public in your community? And I'm here to tell you flat out, uh, as honest as I can be with you, and hopefully you saw my picture, I look like an honest guy. RPR delivers a totally different message than the MLS. And that's why it works for me. And that's why I would include another bullet point that says it's helping you deliver a positive message or a $100 bill message. When I show you that this is an 85-page CMA report, you're going to see that if I'm going up against a competitor in my marketplace who's printing 2 or 3 pages for the MLS, I can beat them every time on the listing appointment. Or let me just say 9 times out of 10, okay? And I hear sellers, when I'm writing the listing agreement up at their kitchen table, tell me over and over again, that report you prepared for us, you put a lot of work into that. That thing was awesome. It's the message you deliver. So RPR is this really cool tool, and it's all in one place for you, and it's going to help you deliver a message that will beat your competition. Now, I've got 2 more slides, and we're going to get right into the information. We need to know about AVMs and RVMs, and I think the educational part of this is important. So I hope you'll appreciate what I'm going to tell you, because as real estate professionals, a big part of our job, at least in my 37 years of being in the real estate business, is being able to educate the consumer on buyer's agency, on pricing, on negotiating for contracts. And if you look at these 2 definitions here, and I want us to focus on the top one, the AVM. It's the Automated Valuation Model. Notice it's a value that estimates a parcel of property based on public information. I'm showing a property just outside Farmington, Missouri, where I'm located. And some folks called me up. They wanted to look at this property. You always get excited as a real estate professional when you have a phone call and they've already driven by the outside of the house and they said, yeah, we would like to look at 123 Smith Street tomorrow at 10, because half your battle's gone, right? I mean, they've driven by, they like the outside of the house. And so I set the appointment up. I drive out there the next day. I meet them at the property. I get out. I say, hi, I'm John Mayfield. It's nice to meet you. And he puts his hands on his hips, gives me a real stern look and says, how come this house is only worth $89,000 on XYZ website? And you probably know which website I'm talking about. And I thought, boy, what a way to be greeted, to myself. And by the way, I had this house listed for $119,900. The website saying it's only worth an estimate of $89,000. And I said, that's a great question, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the website you looked at only has public data that it can work with. And the way it calculates the value, and by the way, it's just a computer that's never even been out and looked at this property or looked at any of the other properties that are available physically in our marketplace, because it is a computer. It's actually looking at public data and it's trying to make a guess on a price based on what information it has available to it as a computer. And unfortunately, Missouri is a non-disclosure state, so that computer doesn't have much data. And that's why there's a discrepancy in the price. Because when I physically inspected this property and looked at it and did my work through the multiple listing service of other properties that have sold and that are available for sale and that expired, that were listed and did not sell, I came up with a totally different price. And that's generally going to happen a lot with automated valuation models. And that's basically what you looked at. And Those folks looked at that house, and by the way, they purchased that house, even though they saw this price that was dramatically different on the internet. Now, here's the problem, and this is why you need to, I want to go through this slide and explain this to you, and you need to understand this. AVMs are very, very popular. There are people who want to know this information. In other words, there are banks who own portfolios of real estate that would like to know what the automated valuation is, or maybe a bank's going to offer money and or loan money. There are county assessors who purchase AVMs. In other words, there's a demand for an automated valuation of real estate. And anytime there's a demand for a product, what do entrepreneurs do? They they offer the product. Hey, you want this? Well, we've got a computer that can go out, look at public data, and kind of give you an idea what we think that price might be worth. Now, it may be off a little bit, but it's going to be at least some ballpark figure. So you've got a product that's high in demand, and you have people fulfilling this need, and it's not very accurate, which can be detrimental for you and I as real estate professionals. So the National Association of Realtors said, you know what, if this is a product that's needed and it could really have some some not best effects on our industry or our members, why don't we create a valuation model? We'll call it the Realtors Valuation Model. We'll register this name, and we can not only use the same exact information our competitors can use, but you know what? We can use the MLS data, which will give us a higher accuracy of any of the valuation products that are out there. And while we're developing this and we create it, why don't we just give it to our members and let them use it so they can make their businesses, that it can help them with their businesses. So that's really why RPR, to me, I'm giving you kind of my version of RPR and how it came about, is that there's a product that was needed in the marketplace that wasn't very good, and they only had access to public information, and in states like mine in Missouri, it's just not going to be very accurate, which is going to hinder my business. I mean, I'm fortunate that my buyers on that property called me and wanted to look at it, because what if they had really looked at that price and said, well, I don't want to look at that property. It's not even worth that. So RVM was developed, and again, it's using public information plus the MLS active, sold, and off-market data to give us the highest accuracy of any of the valuation products. So that's why we have RPR. And that's why it's working for me, and I like it so much. So we're going to get in and start looking at it now. And this is the home screen. If you go to NARRPR.com, and that stands for the National Association of Realtors, of course. So it's NARRPR.com. You will come to this screen. Now, if you've never signed up for RPR, if you're a realtor, you've never signed up for RPR, you will need your NERDS number, and you will need, some information like your MLS login ID. Once you're able to log in to RPR, and the directions are pretty self-explanatory if you've never ever created an account. Once you create the account, you log into RPR, you're going to want to come over here to the gear icon. Now, I'm going to pull up a little item, and I always forget to do this just because I'd like for you to be able to see what I'm doing. And okay, so we'll use this right here. So here's the gear icon right there that we're going to be looking at, okay? Now, I'm also going to be taking some time to look at these tabs across here. We're going to be looking at a lot of information, but I'll try to give you a heads up when I get to one of those spots so that you know where we're at. So let's take a look at the gear icon, which is right up here in the corner. You can hopefully see my mouse. And this is where you will go in, you will put your, most of this information should flow over from your MLS, like your office address and contact information. If not, you want to be sure and complete this information correctly, because this will auto-populate over to your report covers, and we want to make sure that all of that looks good. Then you will also add your MLS. So you're going to add your MLS ID. You'll create a password for RPR, and you'll be able to log in. And you should either see your MLS logo here or hopefully your company logo. Now, if you don't see your company logo, and if you're a broker on the call or if you're an agent and you are just seeing the MLS logo, we can brand that with your company's logo, and there's no charge to that. And I'll show you that at the conclusion of the webinar. So I'll be sure and show you how to do that. Or at least you can show your broker what they need to do to get that process started. And again, there's no charge. So that's the gear icon. That's where you're going to go to make sure your phone number, your name, everything's correct, because that's going to show up on your report pages as you print those out. So we're on the home page, and first thing I want to do is point out two specific items. Notice that we have a tab here called All Properties. See that right there? We also have this tab called Properties that are for sale. Now there's some differences here. And right before the webinar started, as I normally check, there was some type of error that was going on with RPR when we did a search. So I don't know if the search is up, but it looks like it's working again. So like any server, you might have some issues in that area, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to type in Phoenix. This is the MLS we use. And as I type in Phoenix, you will notice that items populate here. Now let's focus on this 85001 zip code. And I want you to pay special attention that I am on this tab. See that? For sale. Okay? This is like Geraldo Rivera. For those of you who remember Geraldo when he opened up the vault several years ago, we were going to go into Jimmy Hoffa's tomb, I think it was, or some vault, and we were supposed to find a body there, and we watched it for 2 hours, and nothing happened. That's the way technology is sometimes. So I'm going to search here, Phoenix, Arizona 85001. If we get, sorry, there's no results, the server was down. So normally, and that's okay because I've got a property pulled up that we can look at. Normally, what I want to point out is this number right here is going to be a smaller number. So it's going to give you the total number, and all of your properties are going to be showing up here. And of course, you can change the number of properties you want to look at, and you can also change the sort order, okay? So this is the first time that I've taught an RPR class where the server was down, and don't panic, it'll probably be back up, but those things happen in our technology world. We just have to deal with it. But you know, it's been very, very reliable for me, so don't panic about that. I do want to make note that what's interesting is everything's color coordinated. And so for sale properties have one color banner, distressed properties have a red, sold would be green, and we'll kind of hopefully be able to look at that, and you'll be able to see that as we go through. Now, if I go back here to the next page where we were, if I selected all properties and I typed in Phoenix and I went to that same zip code and I searched, you would notice that this number is would be much bigger. So I don't know what's going on here. Something entrance. That's in that zip code. So we are getting some properties now that are kind of showing up. And notice these are off market, so they're gray. So, and that probably is a larger number there. I'm thinking there's something going on here with the database, but we're okay. We can still kind of look through this and see what's going on. I can change this sort order right here if I want to by most expensive or least expensive. So I'm going to go back, and I want to show you a couple of other things that you can do right here on the main screen. I can search by address. So if you wanted to search by the specific address of the property, I can search by that address right there. Now, what's interesting about this is there's a couple things you need to know about this. If the property, remember the folks I told you whose house had never been on the MLS? When I was searching for their property, which I was able to find, you have to make certain that you're on all properties. If it's a property that is in the MLS and you're working with a buyer to try to do a buyer's comparison, for your buyer to see what the price might be worth, then you could search all properties, but you would probably want to search for sale. This number is always going to be a little bit, this might be a little bit bigger than the numbers that are for sale because it's mirroring the MLS there. Okay, so we can search by street address. I can search by zip code, and everything always automatically populates. See that? I can even search by county. So if you'll notice, I'm just typing in a few letters. It's very easy for you to search and look to see what's going on. If I go back to Phoenix, I'm going to go to Phoenix, let's see, Arizona, right there. And I also can go in and do a more advanced search. So I'm kind of seeing that this is either the internet on my end or there's something going on with the server, but right over here, I'd have the ability to do an advanced search. And so again, that could be some technical difficulty. I'm going to hit the enter key because you could go into an advanced search and I could do some more specific searches there, but I can also come down here on the left-hand side and I can change these parameters across the left as well. So if I just say, look, I'm only really interested in single-family homes, I can change that right there from the left-hand side, hit the apply button, and I'm good to go. So there's some really cool searches that you can do right from the home screen. You can search for distressed properties only. You can search for narrow it down by price or bedrooms or the type of property or the zip code, so you can get very specific in that particular area. You can also always go into the mapping feature like this, and if I want to zoom out a bit, or let me zoom the other way, if I want to zoom out a bit, this is close to where I'm living, and I could actually go into a polygon. This is actually Holiday Park. So I can come over here and I can actually draw a line around this subdivision. And notice I'm just kind of using a little mapping tool here. And so now I can actually save this as a subdivision name. And I'll just call it name because I think I may have Holiday Park subdivision in there. Now I show you that because I want to encourage you to actually go out and draw some boxes around some subdivisions that you have. It will make it much more easier for you to go in and look at those properties. There's a reason for doing that. We have a main road through our town, where I practice. It's called Highway EE. On this side of Highway EE, this subdivision over here, and this is not the area, but I just want to show you. So you have Highway EE. Over here you have a subdivision called Farmington Meadows. Nice little subdivision, but they're one-car garages. They have narrow streets. A lot of the people park on the street there. A lot of first-time home buyer properties. Again, it's a very nice neighborhood. It's just it's unique to itself. Right across the highway, you have John David subdivision. These properties are two-car garages, brick fronts. They're actually not, there may be some first-time home buyers in there, but a lot of these people are moving up from a first-time home buyer to a second tier, their second home. You don't want to compare a property here in John David to a property over here in Farmington Meadows. They're two different subdivisions. However, see the problem with automated valuation models? The computer says, well, we're doing a CMA on this property right here, and there happens to be a property over here in this subdivision that has the same characteristics, so it goes out and it grabs that and includes it in the calculation. The problem is you and I are both on the ground as real estate professionals, and we know that comp should not be calculated or included in. So the really cool thing about RPR is we get to use our experience and our knowledge to figure out which comps we want to include when we're doing a CMA. That's why I would encourage you to create your own little subdivision maps, because then when you save that, anytime you're on the home screen, you can come over here to the sidebar and I can find that particular subdivision that I just created and all of the activity that's going on in that property. Now, I told you I'd take you out into some deeper waters and show you something cool. Let's say you want to farm this area, or you are already farming this area as a real estate professional, and you'd like to send them something once a month, or more importantly, drive them to your website on a monthly basis if you can go out and get their email addresses. So you've got this little saved search for Holiday Park. Again, I just drew a line around this area in my community. You go up here to reports. You go to Market Activity Report right here. You select more details. You say, you know what, I'd like to just go back the past month. I don't want to include expired listings, and I do not want to include open houses. You can include whatever you want. And now you run this report and you create it. You can go on and keep working in RPR. And what you do is you go out and you create a specific page on your website that is dedicated to that particular subdivision, and you maybe even include a video of what it looks like if they go through the video. I use my GoPro camera, and you allow them the opportunity to download a market activity report that they could pull up and actually look on a monthly basis at what's transpiring and what's going on in the marketplace there. So you can see that there are some really cool things that you can do by going out and creating market activity reports and for subdivisions and then saving those. And the other really interesting thing is if somebody ever needs you to go out and do a report for an area, you've already got that report. You can look at some of the properties and go right into that. So you have the ability to, just to recap what we've done here, a couple of things. You have the ability from the home screen to search by address of the property, city, zip code, county, And you can search by some other parameters that they give you there, but I'll be honest with you, I normally search by one of those methods that does the best for me. I want you to also keep in mind that if it's not on the market, you want to search under all properties. If you're looking up something that's already in the MLS, then make sure you select the For Sale tab. If you say, you know, John, I'd just like to search an area. So you type in 63640 right here. And now I want to search by Farmington. Try to move this thing out of my way for some reason. Keeps wanting to pop open. I search under neighborhoods, and look here, I get a whole neighborhood report about what's happening in Farmington, Missouri. And by the way, a lot of this is stuff you could tweet. Be sure and give RPR a footnote where you got the information. Everything's footnoted in RPR, so you can even use this as the disclaimer. You know, this was pulled from RPR, and then just copy this, because everything in RPR is footnoted. If you're looking at, well, how did they get the population of children by age group? There's your footnote right there, U.S. Census. It's updated annually. So you've got a footnote for everything. I can also come over here and look at housing information under the neighborhood report. I can look at people information. I can show you that 58.7% of the people voted Republican in my community. Where'd they get that information? There's your footnote. So you've got information about the housing, people, economy, so I can look at employment information and what's happening there. And I can even tell you that we get 98 days of full sunshine a year. Interesting. I did an RPR webinar yesterday for Bentonville, Arkansas. They get 113 days of full sunshine a year. So you can look at things like average travel time to work. And look at this. This is what I did on my website. And I use a little company called Flip Builder. There's tons of these out there on the market. But if you wanted to, you could set up pages for all of your communities. And then you can actually go out and you download the RPR report and you put this in a program. And now I've created a digital magazine that people can look at what's happening in my community. And if I want to share that, if I want to share that by email, I can do that. But if I also want to socially share, it's right there, I can share that to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I can embed that in my email. Really a lot of cool things that I can do. And you can see this is an interesting report that you might want to provide your Chamber of Commerce. This is a great report. If you have somebody who's relocating to your community, print this report out and email it to them. Here's some information about our community. Or better yet, I heard one of our RPR trainers say, give them a copy of your neighborhood report and print one from the area they're coming from so they can look at both reports. You know, they will be kind of at least expecting what changes that they could be that would be coming about. So you can put that on your website. Whoops. I almost ended the webinar. We didn't want to do that, did we? So you can put that on your website. You can embed that. You can really do some neat things. Take it to an open house. There's lots of really good things you can do with the RPR reports. Now, let's go and take a look at a property. And I'm going to see if Phoenix, Arizona is working yet. We're going to do for sale and search. Remember, I can do an advanced search out here, so that's okay. I know as a technology person, those things happen. So I'm going to just pull up this property right here, and we're going to take a look at it. for some reason, it'll let you go into a specific property, but it won't let you do the full search. So Valerie's already got the technical people working on that. So here we are in the main tab. You can see there's lots of information. I can see photo information here. I can compare historical reports. So I can go back and look at this property when it was on the market in April. So I can compare that property right there. If this was listed or had a long lineage of MLS activity, you'd see all of that right there. So you can compare that. I love that feature. And I love this feature right here. It's one of my favorite features. Adding notes to your report. I'm a very visual person and I like to point out things. Now, I may not on this particular paragraph, but sometimes you may want to add a note here. You can do that in RPR by doing that as well. By the way, you'll notice right below that, I can add notes or upload photos. This RPR syncs with the RPR mobile app. So if you're working with buyers and you're in a property that they like and the agent has left utility bills or some information that you think may be beneficial when you get back to the office, you could take a picture with your smartphone, upload it, and that photo is going to be saved in your RPR account only and would be available as you go back and talk about that property. So I have homeowner facts, I have values, estimated values of the property, things that I can use to talk with my customer. I have the legal description. I have all the tax informations right there and just some really good information. Now, I use this little chart a lot. Remember, I said it's the message that you're giving your customer. And what I like to do is I like to uncheck the county and the state, okay? So I'm going to show you how this works or how this looks. Because what I want to compare is what does my subject property look like compared to the specific zip code that I'm in. And you can see in this example, because my house is the gold button, that it's just kind of under the radar screen, or in other words, there's a lot of buyers in this price range. In fact, that's the median estimated home value. That's good for me to know. Also, if you're a buyer, they're literally really buying in under or right at. So they're not buying up here. Sometimes I've had my listing price up here and the median value was down here. And this is a good talking point so that your seller understands they're way above the price that they need to be in their marketplace. So that has helped me a lot with some pricing valuations. School information over here. If I'm working with a buyer and they're asking me, well, can you tell us a little bit about the Washington Franklin Elementary School? Here's the great schools rating. Here's test scores. Here's reviews of the school that parents have given. Lots of information that I can get about the school information. And by the way, one of the new features that they've added to RPR is right on the home screen. When you go to the home screen of RPR, the schools, they have a tab for schools right there that you can search. So I really like that as well. So I'm going to just kind of go back to our previous screen here. So there's a lot of information. We're just on the first page. So we have school information, we have homeowner facts, we have all kinds of state and county information, historical records, and remember, we can always go to the bigger map. And what happens here, what I think is kind of interesting, is the ability to actually see what's going on in the marketplace. So I can look at this map right here and say, there was a house over here that sold for $125,000 recently. Or Here's a house that's for sale for $124,900. Here's one that's for sale for $190,000. 193 that's no longer available. So now I'm able to really look at some information about what's happening in the marketplace. And I can turn off the aerial view if I want to go back to this. And this I use a lot. Now, the other feature I use a lot here, and it's right down here, it's called heat overlay maps right here. And I want you to focus when I click on this down arrow right there. So I'm going to select 12-month change in home value. Kind of interesting, isn't it? What does the red mean and what does the blue mean? Red means property values have declined over the last 12 months. Blue means property values are going up. Now, how do you tell that? There's a little map right here. So you can see that if you're going out to list a house, and this house was right here, what's that tell us when we look down below? It's telling us that's pretty dark red, isn't it? Now there we are, right over here. Property values have really depreciated a lot over the last year, about 15%. Now, I don't know if you have sellers like this where you're located. I had a lady one time, and it could just be a thing that happens in my area. I don't know. But I had this lady, I went out and looked at her house, and I came up with a price valuation. She got really upset when I told her the price. Does that happen to you where you live? She was a little bit upset with me. But when I used this map, it was almost all deep dark red. And her house was right there in the middle. And this helped me tell the story, and she understood why her property value was going the wrong way. So sometimes, there's tools and there's charts and there's information in RPR that can really help you tell that story. And there are some great heat overlays that you can take a look at. And here's one on flood zones. So you can actually look at the flood zones, and somebody may be saying, well, John, where did they get the flood zone maps? Remember, everything is footnoted. And so it tells you right here it's coming from FEMA. So check out these heat maps. There's some really good maps. There's some things that you might be able to help when you're using your report to tell a story and to deliver the message you need to deliver so that you can price the property effectively so that it sells, and that so your buyer is comfortable and feels good about the home they're purchasing. So that's all on the first page, and I quickly went over that because it's a basics class. If we go to the history tab, you get some great charts. You can actually go back and look at previous tax records. If there's mortgage records or if there's prior sales transactions, there's not for this property, that would be in there in the MLS. You could look at that data. You can now go over and look at more charts. Do I go over each and every chart with my hopeful to be clients? No. Do I print the 85 pages out? No. I save it into Dropbox on my computer, and I use my iPad to go out and use iAnnotate, where I can draw and highlight certain things and go over the high points, and then I email them a copy of the report. And I want to tell you what, it's going to make you look different than the competition. It is a report that rocks, and it helps you give a $100 bill message. So now let's look at a couple of quick things. We've only got a few minutes left, and I want to show you the refined value because this is a really cool tool. If I went out to this particular property and I said, I'm listing this house, and the first thing I want to do is prepare a CMA, right? And while I'm writing up the listing, the sellers say to me, we added new windows just 2 months ago, John. and we're not even going to be here to enjoy it since we got transferred. So they did new windows and upscale. I picked that, and they say we did that in May, actually, of this year, 2015. And we spent $4,000 on the windows. So I select add, and look what happens. It gave the sellers credit for their new windows. Now it's only $2,348, but you've given them credit for the windows. Why is that important? Well, number one, I think it's important because I think it's a big deal to the sellers. And secondly, it shows you're listening and you care. You know, what's Dale Carnegie say? We can win more friends in 2 months by showing them we're interested in them than we can in 2 years by trying to get them interested in us. I have a little longer story sometimes I tell here, but I don't have time today on why this is important. But I can tell you this, if I ask the seller these questions, and when I go over the CMA and I'm showing them I took those improvements into consideration and my competitor does not do it, who do you think is going to have a better rapport with the seller? Hopefully me, because I'm listening and I'm taking notes and I'm adding that information. So you got lots of great things that you can add. Remember, the computer that's giving the automated valuation, it doesn't know that. The computer doesn't get to talk to the seller like you and I get to. So don't underestimate this tool, and take the time to probe and to ask questions and to find out from the seller, what have you done in the last few years and that you're going to miss or that you've improved to the house. Write that down and include it. And then remember, the computer kind of knows what's going on in the marketplace, but it doesn't have the direct knowledge you and I have. It did not go out and get to look at the house and say, wow, that house needs a total overhaul inside. You know, the computer doesn't know that. Or the computer doesn't know that they've remodeled that entire home. It's in great shape. The exterior's in pretty good shape. And you could be conservative on these. You can adjust the lot size and the view and the privacy. And look what's happening. The computer's making adjustments. So now we've made some adjustments, and I can even say, well, maybe the market conditions have dropped off a little bit. See how it's taken that into consideration. And the computer's doing all of that calculating for you. So now we've come up with an adjustment, and I've incorporated what they've done to the house, and now I'm going to jump over here to the comp analysis. Now it's 5 quick steps. You first of all want to confirm the facts, which I've done on this property. You want to search for comps. We're going to edit this. And what I would encourage you to do is just run a search for your comps. If you don't think you can get some good comps in this map, you can always zoom out, okay? But I would run the search first, seeing what's within that parameter. If you need to go back further than 6 months, you can do that. I'm in a small rural community. I can sometimes look for comps back 12 months. But if you're in a very hot market or a larger metropolitan area, you probably want to just leave this alone, okay? But if you're like me and you're doing a CMA that's out in Belgrade, Missouri, you can go back and search for the last 2 years, and you can also zoom out your map and do some other changes. So I'm going to just search, leave everything alone, and I have some comps here. You can see I've added some of these here. And so here's another one. I don't want to add, I can add Walnut Ridge, but then I can say, you know what, that's not a very good comp. I can always remove that from my list. So I've come down, I've added a few comps there, and we're going to just go on down here. There's one on Wallace Road that I'll add, and now I'm just going to update the valuation, and here's one on Sun Valley. I think I'll include that, and we'll And there's one more that I could include. And now we will, and if we want to add a sale pending, I could do that as well. And we'll update the valuation and close. Now I've come in with a price, and if I want to make adjustments to my comps, I can come over here and I can make adjustments based on my experience and my knowledge of that property. If I've never shown this property, I could just leave it alone. See that? Or I could say, that house is probably not as nice as the one I'm doing my report on. Now, one of my favorite features is if this house right here is probably my best comparable, I come up here to the top and I arrange that and put it in the first order. So this is just my preference. I like to actually line up my comps from the most comparable in those first few rows. And if you ever want to make the pictures bigger, you can just select that, look at them, make some adjustments here, move those bars around based on your knowledge and information, and then add some notes. If you showed the house and it had been remodeled, had a new kitchen countertop, type those notes in because you want to highlight that and go over it. Now we're going to update the valuation and close. And if we want to manually type in our numbers, we can. If we want to leave the numbers that RPR comes up with, we can do that. Now I'm going to print the report. And right up here, you will see more details that I can do that as well. And here's what I do. I do not email it to them in advance. I run the report, put their name and everything on it. I'm going to save this in Dropbox, pull it up with my iPad, go over it at their property on my iPad. If you want to take your laptop out, you can do that. It doesn't matter if you have internet service because you're going to open this report up before you leave the office. And when you get to their house and they want a copy of it, you pull your smartphone out and you email them a copy right from that. One thing I do want to make note, if you want to uncheck any of these pictures, you can, or pages, you can. But again, I'm under the impression that more is better sometimes. I think you can do property flyers, you can do mini reports for open houses. There's a ton of things that I'm doing with RPR, your neighborhood reports, school reports, property reports, and that's all on your reports page. Now, you can access the commercial side of RPR right up here at the top. There are some awesome reports about your local trade area. You should be developing and sending it to local businesses or banks or the Chamber of Commerce because there's some great information you could share with business networks in your community. And that's all up under commercial. Now, I want to show you very quickly as we wrap up here, and I'll take any questions that might be there. RPR Mobile, it's unbelievable. You just have to download it and use it. I use it every day. I work with buyers. Down at the bottom, there's a blog, a little thing that's called blog. You definitely want to hit that and go out and take a look at the blog area, okay? Now here, you can find out more about the RPR mobile iPad app as well. And by the way, in 1 hour, there's going to be an iPad training webinar, and Valerie was going to put in the she's going to put that in the box maybe. If not, you can go out here and you can sign up for the training here. I just got it. But if you're a broker, select brokers and then select enroll right here for those broker tool sets, and that will help be able to, so your whole office is branded here as well. My apologies, we went a couple of minutes overboard. I want to show you very quickly, if you need to report a bug, you can do that down at the bottom as well. They're great people. They are there 365, 24/7, and they will help you solve any problems because we want to get those fixed. All of your reports are saved here. So you've got some saved searches, recent reports, all of that's there. Here's what I want to leave you with. Go out, use it. Remember that whatever you're doing as a real estate professional, what's the message that you are conveying to the consumer? I want you to know RPR works for me. I love it. It's a great system. I will be honest with you that when I first started using RPR, it was like learning a new trick. And, I'm an old dog, and it's like, oh, not another MLS, and it's not an MLS, but that's our mindset sometimes. And I probably used RPR 5 or 10% of the time and used my MLS the majority of the time. Today, I can honestly tell you, looking you straight in the eye, that when I get a call for a new listing, I go to RPR first thing, 100% of the time. I'm in RPR, I'm using RPR, and it just works for me. And I will tell you, and we didn't get into the RVM, and I don't know how I missed that, but the realtor's valuation model. And I want to show you that real quick as I go back to this 113 South Westwood Drive, because, and just very quickly, but this RVM that's right here, that's what the computer's calculating. That will be really, with my gut feeling, about 85% of the time on what I think that house is worth. So use RPR, try it. If you need to contact me, I want to just put my name and phone number, my website. I do some tech tips you can sign up for, but more importantly, I just want you to be able to reach out to me, because a lot of folks do. There's my phone number, there's my email address. You are more than welcome to contact me. I mean that. There's no charge if you've got a question about RPR, because I really like it. It's a great program, and I just want to see it add value to your real estate business. So thank you again, and have a great day. More importantly, I hope you go out and sell something, and I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I hope it was good for you. And my apologies for going a little bit overboard. I just like RPR, so I talk about it a lot. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. Sign up for more training and use it. It's a great system. Thank you so much.